Hey everybody, this is Rydo and we're back to another live stream of video game news. Today is Wednesday, June 5th, 2024. I could have streamed earlier today, but I've decided I want to make kind of a hard limit on these live streams to not stream any earlier than 3 o'clock US Central Time in the afternoon. Just kind of the getting out of school time, although inherently nobody knows the commute there, so yeah. And as far as just when you actually would start watching a YouTube video, and I guess that's less of a factor these days because you could be just watching live streams on a cell phone in a car. Also, I don't know why I'm really centering it around school or work times. But yeah, I think it might help to have a little bit more consistency there. So yeah, that is where I think I'm gonna go. Maybe that might even affect how I schedule things in the future if I ever actually get around to scheduling things in the future. I kind of have to at some point, or I'm gonna run out of things. There was an update to Yu-Gi-Oh! Master Duel here. So what that ends up doing too, as far as having a later start time, now that's kind of a minimum, no guarantee of a maximum, and no guarantees that something won't go wrong otherwise. Though, like, there's still likely going to be hopefully rarer occasions where I'm streaming at 8 or 9 in the evening, just because something came up and I couldn't stream any earlier. But with that gives me enough room to make at least one 2-hour episode. And if I start playing some other games where I can make shorter episodes, 22-minute episodes, 40-minute episodes, then that would be several episodes that I could record before live streaming, which would lead to more productivity on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, because very consistently, by the time I'm done streaming, I am never energized enough to make some recording. Best case scenario, I take a nap after I stream and then wake up in the middle of the night and start making pre-recorded footage. So with that, the catch-up section today, I have finished the Old World Blues DLC, is I guess what it was called, for Fallout New Vegas, and got what seemed like the perfect ending you could get, which is its own little story wrap-up. I would say Old World Blues fixes a lot of problems with the main game, so it definitely would make sense to play it as early as you can feasibly play it. They want you to play it at about level 15. Without any DLC, the max level would have been level 30. So originally, they're saying halfway through the main game, you should have, or halfway through the level up chain of the main game, you should play Old World Blues. I would say maybe even a little bit earlier than that. It's a nice middle act of the game. Of course, how would you really know what the middle act is? I would say probably when you first enter, you should probably rush to get into New Vegas, and then when you first enter New Vegas, that's probably the best indicator that you are at the middle act. And so I would do very little, if basically nothing, in New Vegas, and then go do Old World Blues. Inherently, the Lucky 38 house that you get in the main story is not as good as the house you get in Old World Blues. And so if it's going to take you a while to get that presidential suite anyways, you should just take all your items and store all your items in the Old World Blues location instead. And once you finish Old World Blues, you straight up have a teleporter that will just let you be over encumbered with objects, and so you can just have thousands of pounds of items in your inventory and just teleport to the Old World Blues house. And inside the Old World Blues house, you have a hot plate that lets you cook, a crafting bench that lets you craft, and a reloading bench that lets you reload, and a store that lets you sell items to some level of success, depending on how many caps are in the store. You also have a healing spot that will heal you of everything, which is not in the Presidential Suite. You don't have anything like that in the Presidential Suite. And you have 3 different things that will break down extra items that don't have any use at all. So it is just a way better item overall, and or better city. And yeah, you do have to be good about doing everything in Old World Blues, and you're going to spend a lot of time there. But when everything's said and done, the rewards are pretty massive in that you can break down junk items to make more expensive crafting items, to break the economy. I felt like Old World Blues pretty much did everything better than the main game does. It has a more linear story, a smaller map that is more dense. There really is just not any empty space in the DLC map. You're getting attacked by a lot of random encounters. And when you fight these people with the random encounters, you get a decent amount of stuff, like crafting ingredients and things like that. But yeah, it's definitely a better situation. The only things I can really complain about Old World Blues is that 1, it's very science heavy. 2, if you do it like you would probably have experienced New Vegas originally, when the DLC wouldn't have been originally available, I assume, you're gonna have a slightly rougher time with that. They do put all of the conversation people in one area for the most part. Whereas it would have made a little bit more sense in my mind if they had taken the 5 main characters and had them spread out throughout the map. And yeah, if you just really hated science, Old World Blues really wouldn't work for you very well. If you have all your stats at the highest, Old World Blues may not work particularly well for you. You waited too long to play it. That's going to be true for most DLCs. If you hate crafting and barter and all of that, Old Blues isn't going to be particularly a great experience. And they do have a encouragement at the beginning of the game to tell you to just race through it, and that probably would have gotten you a bad ending, but it probably would have let you just go back to the area and do the extra content. Yeah, Old World Blues is all about science, so thematically it is 2 or 3 notes. I wouldn't call it 1 note, but you definitely aren't running into any like raiders or rad roaches or enemies. In fact, there are literally 2 types of enemies you're going to fight for the 99% of the time in Old World Blues. But yeah, with the minor gripe of all the conversation pieces being in one room, and then you likely having all the conversations at once instead of spreading out the conversations throughout the world. There's a lot of like named enemies that don't have any real purpose as far as I can tell. There's a decent amount of quests that I completed when I hadn't even started the quest, so I missed something there. The final conversation subquest, if you want to do it non-violently, is achieved by just talking to a bunch of people, and it just doesn't get marked in the map as being in the quest in the Pip-Boy as being a quest. So exhausting the very long conversations rewards you in ways that are unexpected. One of the things about Old World Blues that's also interesting is that it lets you reset your traits, which traits are like perks and they're in the list of perks in your Pip-Boy, but some of them are only available to you at the very beginning of the game. So, and realistically, you probably should just take Skilled and Wild Wastelands every time. Skilled gives you +5 skill points to every skill, whether that's unarmed combat or lockpicking or science or medicine. All of those get +5, which without taking Skilled you have a very low chance of getting 100%, getting a 100 skill level on everything. There's only about 74 skill points with all the DLC that you can miss. If you play perfectly following the walkthrough, which is probably what I'd recommend. And then Wild Wastelands adds a weirdness, promises to add a weirdness to the main game. And I assume that probably means that there's just going to be more random encounters of more weirder things. It feels very much like that should have been a option that just pops up like hardcore mode instead of being one of the 2 traits you can take. If for some reason you weren't going to take Wild Wastelands and we're just trying to get all the perks, then Slender Frame will give you +1 agility. So that would be a possibility. I don't know if there's really too much more to say about the past 6 or 7 episodes I've recorded of Fallout New Vegas. Inherently, despite all my praise, it still is a Bethesda game. It's still a game that is full of actions that require you to be in the menu and manipulate items. It is very much 60-70% of your time. You're just going to be in the menu repairing guns, repairing armor, crafting items, cooking items, selling items. It is very much a resource management game more than I feel it should be. Particularly with the Fallout TV series. I do suspect they should make spin-off games or make the main game more of an action first-person shooter and spin off some of the other stuff into maybe something for the hardcore old school fans. Yeah, I did a bunch of, I spent like 30 minutes on screen recording, doing a bunch of trading, and as I clicked process the transaction, leave the menu, it crashed. So now I'm gonna probably spend about an hour just selling things to the Gunrunners shop to buy mods for guns and to get caps. Inherently, even if you have your barter at the 100% 100 skill, it's still not 1 for 1. You're not selling guns that are worth 100 for 100, and you're not buying guns that are worth 100 for 100. So you always lose caps. So you can't just sell things back and forth without realizing that you need something else to replenish that. And the thing that you can do to replenish that is somewhat limited in crafting other items. Okay. I'm gonna hope this works correctly. So have I been doing anything else? No, I'm watching a TV show. I think it's called Dark Places. In retrospect, I think it is set in South Africa because there's a lot of characters that are speaking Zulu. And so it's like more African based folklores would be, I guess, the best way to describe it. Ghost and witchcraft and things like that. I have taken one more step to regretting my interaction with the Steam Deck OLED. I can't really regret the device itself. I perhaps regret the amount of money I spent on it and the timing of spending that money, but yeah, I have been for weeks now taking my Steam Deck OLED and putting it on the back of my chair. It's a recliner, so it's a thick back, and so it can just bounce there without falling off. And then I would move it when I sit in the chair to my bed, and then when I'm done sitting in the chair, I'd move it back from the bed to the back of the chair. And I've just done that multiple times a day for weeks now without actually turning it on and doing that. So I have now just put it on another Surface side table that, so can I summon this? I guess I could, but I want to summon this now. I can't do anything with this either, so, but I don't need to. Just attack. So yeah. Why is that a bad thing that I've put it somewhere where I won't move it around as much? Well, it means I've effectively taken it out of my activity circumference and I just won't touch it and won't work on it, which I wasn't doing anyways. So, but most people have experienced this. You get something, you're kind of hyped on it, and then all of a sudden it gets put on a surface, and then you finally decide you need to clean off that surface, and then it gets put possibly in the back of a closet, and then you find it 6 months to a year, 2 years later, and then you realize, oh, this is totally worthless now, and you just give it away, throw it away. Steam Deck would be kind of hard to make that argument. Though, but yeah, I've definitely done that with other video game related things where I thought I was going to do something and then I'm just not getting around to actually accomplishing anything. Frankly, I'm surprised I've even managed to maintain running this YouTube channel. I'm just tired all the time. Or non-productive if I'm not actually tired. Of course, there is the opposite of that scenario in which you can, and I've also experienced this in my life too, where you can work a job and be doing that job, flipping burgers, for example, for years and years, and while you technically have done something, you've not done anything that would have actually fulfilled you or accomplished much for society. All you've done is make more profit for the corporation, who then in turn pays you a small fraction of the profit you made for them, while also making very high demands on your time, your health, your mental health, your body. Alright, oh yeah, and I was also researching if there was perhaps a different monitor that I need to buy to replace my monitor that broke. The one I have right now that's kind of the backup one, I think there's something wrong with it, come to think of it, that it flickers and loses connection every now and then, which could just ruin any episode. So, because that did happen to my computer just randomly, the video seemed to flicker and mess up. So I probably need to buy a new monitor sooner than later. And there is this one LG that has 4 inputs, 4 HDMI inputs, so you can do a 4-way, and it's a 4K screen, so it would be 4 1080p 60 frames per second images. There are cheaper boxes if you already had a monitor, or if you wanted to buy a bigger monitor, since this LG is only 43 inches, which is in that weird position where it's way too small really for a TV across the room, and perhaps a little big for a monitor right in front of your face. But yeah, there are some small boxes with multi-view, but that I saw on Amazon, but none of them do 60 frames per second at 4K. They can take some of them can take 1080p 60 frames per second into the inputs, but they output 4K 30 frames per second, which for gaming is not really good enough. Yeah, I would say that is definitely not good enough. So this LG, even though it may be a couple years old, is still the best offering I've found. The other problem with it would be that it wasn't super bright, or probably not QLED or OLED. OLED in general is falling out of favor. Speaking of falling out of favor, I believe 4K, I think 8K has been pretty much abandoned, and we'll see a bit of evidence to that, at least by Sony, but I think it's been pretty much abandoned by TVs in general, and TV and panel manufacturers. I just don't think they're gonna convince people to embrace 4K. Or particularly, I don't think they're going to convince them to embrace 8K. But I also think they may be abandoning 4K. And maybe that is because there's some sneaky new announcement that's about to happen where it is going to be 16K, or it's going to be some new standard that is just totally incompatible with 8K, and then it's going to go under a different resolution or name. Yeah, at a certain level, 8K at that 16:9 ratio probably doesn't make as much sense as it should, and we should be thinking of having maybe the same number of pixels as an 8K screen that is twice as wide and more of a horizontal 32:9 ratio, instead of maintaining the same ratio. But it also might just be a total abandonment. Okay, I've done everything here and I think I've just lost. Yeah. It may just be that it's a total abandonment of TV altogether. But I don't know why you would just abandon it, but it's not like there's a lot of people making MP3 players these days either. I'm also seeing that they're shutting down one of the, I guess, mediumly popular, as best I could guess it was, streaming services, digital video streaming services. So that was 4K streams. And definitely we have had confirmation now that Walmart is going to have a small selection of even smaller selection of like 4Ks and Blu-rays and physical movies, and Best Buy is completely getting rid of that. I think they've confirmed that. And it's not like players have gotten particularly cheap. Like, I know that there's a couple of technologies that they have talked about more in the scientific discovery phase, as far as cramming more data onto something like a disk, but I don't know if any of that was ready to be actually released. So yeah, I have no idea what's going on there. Computex, I believe, is happening right about now, or just finished up, as one of the bigger computer expos. So maybe there was something at Computex, or a lack of something at Computex. And I guess we'll have to keep an eye out to see what the next Consumer Electronics Show has to show, if anything. Hmm. You know, it kind of doesn't make a lot of sense, though, because Sony just said that they were going to try and make more money on anime anyway. So how are they going to make more money on anime if they, one, don't have a particularly good streaming service like Crunchyroll, which they don't. They have abandoned quite a few streaming shows and movies just because they're too lazy or it's too difficult to renegotiate or transfer over the older anime. And then if Blu-rays aren't really being made for anime as much as they were before, so unless they just are planning on negotiating to have more things on Netflix or Amazon Prime, or there actually is quite a bit more than you would think on Disney Plus, and just people don't really get advertised it. So yeah, I'm very confused as far as what the next thing is. We're getting some free victories here, but not at a fast enough rate that I feel like I'm going to actually make it to platinum at this rate. Really should have taken a break there. I just thought of something else I was going to say, and now I've forgotten it. Lost my train of thought. That's why taking a bathroom break is helpful. Oh. Yeah, I got my new dehumidifier, and I've had to empty it like 4 times in 2 days already. It has 50 pints tank, and it also has a continuous tube, but I don't have it set up in a way to actually drain through the continuous tube. So yeah, at the moment I'm experimenting with it, and this is the start too, so it might be a case that once it just gets as much of the house as it can actually affect down to a low enough humidity, might just be able to maintain without filling up as much. But yeah, inherently I'm thinking, could you find the right ratio to have a continuous drain dehumidifier water plants and just constantly water plants? If 50 pints every 6 to 12 hours though, you're gonna need a massive amount of plants. They're very, very thirsty plants. Yeah, I'm gonna have to concede this and take a break. The more logical thought would be to have it drain into a laundry machine, but then you might get a mold if you're just filling up a laundry machine with water. The mold spores in the air could land in it, and so that's probably not safe either. Filling up a toilet, maybe, but to do any of that, the machine itself would have to be above the tank, which means you're mounting it on the wall that should be on the floor, and I'm not sure if humidity rises in the air or stays about the same. So the real solution is just to have it drain down a floor drain if you have one, or out the doors if you can do that. Anyways, I'm gonna take a break and I'll be right back. Okay, I'm back. There is something certainly to be said about changing the whole title and less emphasis on Yu-Gi-Oh! And then having bathroom breaks that I didn't bring up the Duel Live and show more Yu-Gi-Oh! Because now I changed the title to shift viewers' attention away from and focus away from wanting to see Yu-Gi-Oh! Into more being interested in video game news, and then every time I take a break, I'm just back to Yu-Gi-Oh! I don't know a great way to fix that. Like, at some level, I guess I could have YouTube Shorts playing during the fairly frequent bathroom breaks I end up taking. It's usually one per stream, which certainly that's not going to help watch time. Although, in fairness, my watch time averages like 2 or 3 minutes, so people are leaving still 4 or 5 minutes at most into the stream. So, if I really were going to do anything, I probably should stop playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Altogether and just immediately go into news. But then I'm never warmed up for that, so then I would really just need to play Yu-Gi-Oh! As a pre-stream. Which I don't know if that really works either. Yeah. I would need to redo everything, and I probably do need to redo everything. Anyways, well, we've got some Yu-Gi-Oh! To play here, but I really do want to just now start talking about bigger news stories. So, YouTube advertisers has this new creative reaction series. Creative execs react to successful recent YouTube campaigns, which, yeah, I'm not sure really what campaigns they're really talking about. And inherently, you have what looks like some very old ad executives here who know probably nothing about YouTube or online culture at all. Yeah. Even this one from YouTube doesn't really feel like they're doing anything YouTube. And meanwhile, they're showing some kind of ad campaign for Only Murderers in the Building, which is a Hulu very well known, very well advertised like streaming TV series. So once again, you have just what feels like a major disconnect from what really YouTube should be focusing on. Yeah, they I don't think know what they're doing. I don't know if I would ever be able to claim I'd do any better, but I think I would do better. I think I would be I'd be like, what was it, Steve Ballmer on stage, screaming on stage going, creators. I would bang that point into the head of every single person at YouTube, is that YouTube is about its creative community. It has to be about this creative community. It can't become a replacement for TV. It can't be a bait and switch for TV. It can't be a shill for other streaming services. I mean, it's just absolutely insane that they're promoting a direct competitor to themselves in the form of Hulu. Even if they don't think Hulu is much of a some level, I guess if YouTube did buy Hulu and used it as a backdoor to get more people to watch YouTube, that would be weird. Probably wouldn't work, but it's definitely a thought. I believe I have enough here to win in this one turn. Do we have a one-turn kill? Let's see. If I ditch this, put that face up. If I activate this and take a 3, yep, we've got a one-turn kill. So yeah, I was talking earlier about my confusion as to just what is the next direction that TV and physical media, as far as Blu-ray discs, are going. Video games are still going to need some kind of storage, so unless they have figured out some way to just burn a ton of data onto ROMs, it still feels like Blu-ray discs with more layers would make sense. But yeah, here we have from VideoGamesChronicle.com. Sony has removed the 8K claim from the PlayStation 5 boxes. Company has updated its packaging to reflect a lack of support for that resolution. Did it ever actually support 8K, or was it just assuming it would support 8K? Inherently, I wonder if there was maybe one $10,000 to $20,000 TV that supported some kind of pseudo standard of 8K, and Sony stopped manufacturing that TV. When it launched the slim model last November, 8K was still on the picture box. So at some point they removed it. Sony started branding TVs that support 8K and 120 frames per second as PS5 ready as early as June 2020. So there were TVs, which, yeah, I wonder if they're just going to stop making 8K TVs. And inherently, I don't know if you need 8K. I think 4K at 144 frames per second is probably a lot more desirable. And I think it'll be a long journey just to get people to fully adopt 4K at 144 per second. And inherently, if you're just watching a streaming service, you're not getting 4K for anything. And if there's not really any physical media, you're not getting 4K. Like, my hope here definitely would be that we're on the verge of some major new announcement of a better standard overall for 8K or 4K. I don't know if they're called Ultra HD right now. I would assume that the next branding would make sense just to get rid of the HD part. High dynamic range also should probably play a bigger role, and so maybe a new standard, in understanding that, to support at least HDR10 is something. But yeah, my main fear is that this is just all going to end in a flattening of any progress as far as resolutions go. Yeah, at a certain level, toasters are just toasters, even though I did just see $100 electronic smart toasters that really isn't that smart. I don't even think it advertised itself as smart. But yeah, at a certain point you just lower the amount of effort you put into making a toaster, and that's the best you can do. You don't try and make a better toaster. Do we have a one-turn kill here? Now, I don't have enough to do anything more. So yeah, this article continues to say that the PS5 received its first ever 8K 60 frames per second game called The Tourist, T-O-U-R-Y-S-T, in October of 2021, but Sony never activated the output on the console with the system upgrade originally planned. It's recently been claimed that a PS5 Pro console is coming out, and it will feature a proprietary deep learning super sampling like solution, which, yeah, I think there's perhaps been a lot more success around increasing frame rate by using deep learning super sampling, or pretending like you're increasing frame rate, making it seem like you're actually increasing frame rate instead of having we're gonna have a native frame rate argument that's going to get made pretty quickly here, where things are going to technically be running at 30 frames per second, but deep learning super sampling is going to create a situation where it's going to look like 60 frames per second because it's going to add in a bunch of extra data that it's guessing at. But yeah, I imagine some of this may straight up have to do with just the video cards themselves shifting focus, like high resolution. And it's just hard. I have to admit, it is just harder to do something at 8K than it is 4K than it is 1080p. And we just don't have the technology there. We don't have the interest there. I'm definitely looking at this as one bit of evidence towards what's going to happen to movies and DVDs and Blu-rays, whereas Sony PlayStation in particular is more looking at it as how can they save a buck on their PlayStation. And I guess at a certain level, if I really think about it, maybe Sony is even removing 8K support from the PlayStation Pro because it's not selling them any extra units, and instead going to try and sell a standalone Blu-ray player device. And maybe in part this also is pushing towards the idea that maybe the next Sony console itself will just not have a disk drive at all. Which it still doesn't really make a lot of sense. There is some other form factor, certainly. Like, really, if you could just squeeze the amount of data that's on the micro SD card, if you could squeeze that into the size of, like, the size of a CD, DVD, and just have one giant physical write once type device, that you could have a lot more space. That would also be very expensive. I'm just not going to take any chances here. Let's just go ahead and clear the board as it is. So yeah, what Sony and PlayStation is doing may not be connected to what the rest of Sony is doing at all. Amazon Prime seems like they want to be the place for video game adaptations, so they have announced a Like a Dragon TV series that's going to have some flashbacks. This is basically telling the story of, I think, the first Like a Dragon game or Like a Dragon Origin. It's going to be whatever was chronologically the experience. What I would say to take note from this is, having just finished the Old World Blues DLC of Fallout New Vegas, that still is not really connected to the Fallout TV series. And the Fallout TV series is taking place in a different place and before the events of Fallout New Vegas. And there was a tease at the very end of the series that it might, season 2 might take place in the New Vegas area. I wouldn't be surprised if it doesn't really play in any way. Yeah. And I have been seeing more Asian shows on Amazon Prime, so I can see this Like a Dragon series being targeted more towards fans of Korean and Japanese shows. It kind of has to be. Like the Like a Dragon series as a game really requires you to have a certain affinity for the Japanese Yakuza style stories. You're not going to come in blank on Like a Dragon and like it, would be my assumption. Of course, maybe I'll get proven wrong. And I have to say, at least this is showing that they have some kind of direction now at Amazon Prime. Or at least they're starting to have some kind of direction. You would have thought it might have been like the Thursday Night Football, which they are definitely not talking about that. And I guess that is probably a statement as far as just how much the world may have changed. And in fairness, I think a lot of people that were used to watching Thursday Night Football, or just football in general, NFL, were watching it because it was the only thing on. There was no counter programming at all, a lot of times, and there was just less competition. The other thing, certainly, about a potential death of physical media is movie theaters aren't doing any better, so it's not like there's been a major resurgence of people going back to movies. Hollywood's not doing any better, so who knows? Like, there could have been a possibility of a return to like drive-in theaters. The technology now probably is a lot better, and the air conditioning in cars are pretty decent, and so if all of a sudden you're charging like $5 a car instead of $5 a person for people to go to drive-in theaters, park their car, tune their radios to a certain FM station. It would have to be FM now, AM's dying, and then watching a movie up projected with perhaps a better projector on the screen. That could be a cheaper solution, and certainly would be cheaper to run as a movie theater, because it is the air conditioning and the fact that movie theaters are also not getting anywhere as much. I don't think they get anything on the ticket sales at all, so they're just selling concessions, which means if you're just selling concessions, you need a small concession stand. You don't need giant theaters with giant sound systems, speakers, a whole bunch of projectors, air conditioning, electricity, things like that. Of course, it is not as nice of an experience, if you can find a nice experience, as sitting in a theater. The Godot engine is celebrating Pride, and I think I want to give them a pass on that, because I think they've always kind of celebrated Pride as an open source things. Most open source projects is going to just heavily come down to who's in charge as far as who makes the code of conducts, and just the general vibe and attitude around Pride are or attitude around anything, Pride or otherwise, are written by the founders of an open source project. And that's where you see like Linux and Linus Torvalds. He's a little bit rough with people and a little bit rude in the past, he's been, and Linux kernel as an open source project kind of reflects that. Now, they aren't doing exclusively Pride things, so they are showing off eyeball technology. Now, inherently I have to ask, do you really want to see eyeball technology, and are you ever at a point in the camera, I imagine somebody made this and they're just memeing on this, but are you ever at a point in a video game where your camera is that zoomed in that you're just seeing the reflections on the eyeballs, or every single wrinkle and follicle of hair around a character? And this is Horizon Forbidden West, which was certainly applauded for looking realistic, and I assume this is Last of Us Part 2 Remaster. Now, notably, the complaint about Horizon Forbidden West is that there was kind of a peach fuzz on the sides of the face, on the cheeks, and of Aloy. And so I'm zooming in on The Last of Us here, and I don't see any animated follicles really, unless I'm confusing moles and freckles for hairs. No, I don't see any hair here. I'm seeing a lot of freckles, I'm seeing a scar. Again, you're never just that close, whereas there is definitely hair follicles you can see here. That's not uncommon in real women, but also it's not something that's desirable either. And like most women, almost all women, don't want peach fuzz on their hair and would on their face, and would shave it off or cover it up in makeup. If you're going to a theater or a movie, theatrical movie or anything like that, any female presenting actor would shave it off or cover it up if they thought it would be seen at all. And so when both the male and the females and most of everybody in between all agree that hair on the face of women is not a desirable trait, it is kind of obstinate to put it into your video game, even if you're just stubbornly trying to be realistic. It's just not necessary. Video games aren't going to be 1-to-1 ratio realism. That's a big problem I have on a much broader sense with the Bethesda games and the Fallout games. It's just kind of obstinate to have a toilet in every single house when there's nothing ever in the toilets, or to have beds for every single character when that just creates way too many beds, or have NPCs walking around and sleeping in their beds when most games have wisely figured out it's better just to have NPCs always standing behind their shop or standing in their assigned spot. So yeah, and when you come to like realism, Abby's realism is in a post-apocalypse. Aloy's world is in a post-apocalypse. Really, it's a world with robotic dinosaurs and really sharp blades, so shaving wouldn't be a problem. And then Sinua's the one we haven't looked at yet, and let's just look at what's going on with Sinua's face. Yeah, Sinua, being in a Viking world, has darker hair strands on the side of her face. So, Sinua Saga 2, also after the whole complaint about seeing hair strands, perhaps a invalid complaint. I know they're talking about the eyes here. But yeah, do you really need this level of detail? Like, it's not even in real life you get this close. You don't put a magnifier up to people. Yeah. It certainly may be a case that because Horizon was complained, people, I think, rightfully complained about the character design change in general around Aloy in the second game, and people, I think, perhaps trolls, perhaps reverse trolls, complained about her looking too masculine when she really just kind of looked a little bit uglier. Now, it may be a case that the creators of Hellblade 2 intentionally added more hairs just so there was hairs here. But even in that, you can see these hairs are fairly long and off the side of the face, where these hairs are fairly short and on the side of the face. And in the world of Sinua, even though she's much dirtier usually, she would be in the past, so her not being able to shave makes a lot more sense than Aloy not being able to shave. I guess for funniness sake, we can look at the gray blob of the Godot eye and see that the resolution hasn't changed there. So yeah, not a great comparison, but worth checking out, I guess, if you want to see where the level of details have gone perhaps overboard. Me playing Fallout New Vegas at this time, I would just like to be able to see my character in cutscenes and conversations. That would be good enough for me, like just to see the face of the character. Here they have something about migrating animations from Godot 4.0 to 4.3. But here is their Godot Foundation. I guess is separate from the Godot engine tweeter, and they just retweeted it. Code of Conduct has always stated support for minorities in games industry and is being applied all year round. In fact, the Godot engine project thrives off of welcoming new people in our community. Visibly supporting diversity is key to ensure minorities feel safe and invited to participate. Let's continue to celebrate LGBTQIA games and game developers and content creators together. The Godot Foundation wishes everyone a very happy Pride Month. Okay. It seems fairly fair. And I can't really expect that an open source free game engine has a ton of money to donate like, say, Activision does. I would like to see them support these ideals if they believe in them, perhaps by making sure they're including those people in their hiring, if they are actually hiring anyone. But yeah, we will see how many other game companies pay lip service, which in fairness, this still is just lip service. They're not really doing anything else other than just pointing out they have a code of conduct. We'll just see what other companies pay lip service and what companies don't. Here we can see YouTube Gaming has decided to just roughly change its header, and I'm not sure that they're even changing who they're promoting. This could easily have been the exact same 3 people as last month. Meanwhile, YouTube Gaming is still incredibly pointless in that they're like, what game the group chat put you onto is a crazy question. I can't imagine more than 5% of players have ever been in a group chat in a game and had somebody promote some other game that you're not playing to them. It just doesn't work that way. Apparently Sims 3 was released 15 years ago on June 3rd. Sims 3. I guess we're up to Sims 4 now. It's still churning out microtransaction laden things. But yeah, they still really have nothing to say as a Twitter channel. I sat through some of this one OTK Games Expo presented by Cash App. It had a setup at the beginning where it was just showing trailers in silence. Nobody was saying anything or doing anything. And then it had this big fat guy that I thought at a second might have been the completionist doing this song and dance number, talking about some of the games they wanted to highlight. And then they had some people on a couch talking about games, and then it finally got into what I would say was the proper presentation, where they would show some games and kind of talk about it. But the presentation did not catch my attention. The games didn't catch my attention. I really do think it is just better, even for me as a content creator, to wait for other mainstream video game journalist sites to talk about these games, or just wait for these games to put out proper press releases instead of wasting time with all the extra stuff in between each trailer reveal, of which most of the trailer reveals aren't very helpful in what they show. But particularly, I would say this Games Expo had a lot more people sitting on couches like they were a group of friends going, oh, that's awesome, so cool, trash talking each other even a little bit. Like, that's the kind of stuff I think in particular that doesn't work well in a presentation. Ideally, I think what I want is the Summer Games Fest with just a few more people, project leads, developers on games, coming out on stage and talking about their game. That's all I really want. Just, here's a trailer, here's somebody to talk about a trailer, here's maybe Jeff Keighley in the middle, saying, next up we have a trailer from this new company, then here's a trailer, here's another person talking about that trailer, over and over again. Just show me a trailer, get me hyped visually and audio if you want to do that, talk about it just standing on stage, then transition and repeat. And maybe I can tolerate one musical number in the middle for an intermission on a live show. But that's all I really want. I don't want a whole bunch of musical numbers. I don't want any gimmicks. If you were going to do giveaways, okay, that might get people's attention if you're going to do that. But for the most part, I think the presentations probably shouldn't be shilling giveaways in the middle of the presentation. But yeah, I think most people just want to see the trailers, just want to hear about the games. That's why it's so easier, so much better to just wait for the information after the fact. Here we have Video Games Chronicles saying that the United States Red Cross has partnered with Tetris to encourage U.S. blood donations. Donors are offered an exclusive Tetris and Red Cross t-shirt. There's undoubtedly good things that can happen by donating blood. You can't really say donating blood or donating organs is going to be a bad thing. But there is also some controversies that I think you just have to pretend like it doesn't exist or ignore it. One being that the Red Cross sues people for using this red plus sign way too much for no good reason and has caused a lot of problems overall. And that might be more the International Red Cross than the United States Red Cross, but whatever. And two being that there are hospitals out there that will gladly accept your blood donations and pay you nothing for it, and then sell any surplus of blood they have from their hospital to another hospital in secret backroom deals. And so there have been stories of hospitals making decent profit off of your generosity and charity. Wouldn't be surprised if there's similar things in other charities. But yeah, don't let perfect be the enemy of good enough. Donate blood if you can. And I'll leave it at that. Get a free t-shirt. It's not a terrible t-shirt, although I do question the usefulness of having t-shirts ever, anywhere. It's just never really a greatly appropriate thing to wear. Schools don't want you wearing t-shirts generally, and work doesn't. Most jobs aren't going to let you wear t-shirts, so it is potentially a waste of fabric to have any kind of prints on t-shirts in general. And certainly we could be a more efficient world if they just made white t-shirts, black t-shirts, and there were no prints at all. I imagine there's billions of dollars worth of shipping and storage that are just getting flushed down the toilet by somebody making some t-shirt print that has to be made in bulks of thousands and selling only a few hundred t-shirts. I mean, we know that's the case. That's why you see so many t-shirts ending up in poorer countries that don't make any sense. Let's see. Moving on, GameDeveloper.com says that Hades 2 has ascended to be the Steam Deck's most played May game. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Certainly a lot of people playing it early access, although I kind of get the feeling, and I think my chart agrees with this, that the fandom around Hades 2 is going to drop until it actually comes out of early access, and then I imagine it will get a bump back up. The Just Cause developer Avalanche is closing 2 studios and laying off 50 workers. The company will be shuttering its studios in New York and Montreal to ensure a sustainable future. This is yet another GameDeveloper.com article. Noticeably, the Mad Max game, I think, is on sale right now. It has a plant in front of this game. I can't even really tell what it is supposed to be. Seems like something maker. Yeah. Terrible picture to put a plant right in front of it. But yeah, the Mad Max game is on sale. The Hunter. Never heard of that game. And Rage 2, I think I bought that game and wanted to play it at some time. You know, it probably wouldn't be a terrible game to play just as a comparison to Fallout New Vegas. Like, I thought of playing Rage 1 or Rage 2 as a comparison to Fallout 3 even, but the problem is playing one of those games and then playing another one back to back just doesn't make a lot of sense. Let's see. The Montreal office was opened in October of 2023. So yeah, that didn't work out. IKEA is going to weirdly pay actual people over 18 years old an hourly wage of, I think it was close to like £13 an hour to work in a VR digital shop in Roblox in IKEA. I can't help but feel like this is some kind of scheme to pay interns or pay children of people who already work at IKEA. 10 successful applicants will be paid an hourly rate of £13 15 pence or 14.80 euros per hour to work in different sections of the store, like the showroom, bistro, helping people choose their furniture, serving meatballs. Virtually, I would assume. I would assume that the furniture and the meatballs don't actually sell for any Robux, but maybe they do. So maybe they're paying real world money to 10 employees to make Robux currency, unless the thought, and this would be the better thought here, is that they think this will get more people to actually go to a real world IKEA and buy real world IKEA furniture, and that they are experimenting here using Robux of having virtual stores and virtual shopping experiences. But also, this kind of smells like this could be just money laundering, just getting as much Robux instead of taxable income in the hands of IKEA. However, the intention, whatever the intention is very weird and not something I expect a lot of companies to do. But who knows, we may very well just have some kind of AI virtual shopping assistants that are going to have us walk through VR stores. But even at that seems kind of silly. You're just converting a real world experience to a lesser VR experience, where you get a much better experience just having a well-designed website like Steam or Amazon.com, and those sites aren't particularly greatly designed, but they still are better than virtually having to walk to an object and try and inspect it, but you wouldn't actually be able to touch it, feel its weight, feel its smell, you know, particularly IKEA stuff. I would want to go to a shop, make sure the box I was picking out as for any furniture hadn't been damaged around the packaging, and that it felt heavy enough, and what it looked like assembled, and just where it fits. Amazon.com can tell you sizes of things. It doesn't do a great job. They really should start 3D scanning every object. That would be the next step. It's just everything in their facility gets unboxed, assembled, and then 3D scanned so that you can, well, we don't have hologram projectors, but you could do some kind of better augmented reality presentation with it than what they're already doing. But yeah, I just don't see that's going to be the way forward. And like, I order groceries to be delivered, and last thing I would want to do is walk up and down a virtual grocery store for hours. Let's see. CI Games has hired Tencent and PlayStation veterans to spearhead development. The Lords of the Fallen studio has made significant layoffs in 2024, but has a robust production slate. This is from GameDeveloper.com. Also, yep. The good news is I would say we are hearing less news about layoffs as we are at the halfway point of 2024. But we're still hearing about layoffs, and it's not like a whole bunch of games are going to get announced and released in the back half of this year. Let's see, Hogwarts Legacy has returned to the top of the UK physical charts as Paper Mario slipped to second. This is from Video Games Chronicle. And yeah, I could definitely see where there would have been a lot of enthusiasm at launch for Paper Mario Thousand Year Door, but then there just wouldn't be that sustained enthusiasm for the second week, and Hogwarts Legacy is just going to have that sustained enthusiasm, same way that F1 and Football Club 2024 are going to maintain a fandom. Minecraft is in 8th spot. I wonder if it's always been in the top 10 or not. I think the Elden Ring DLC is coming out fairly recently, so I could see that going up too. What was I going to talk about as far as Lego? Well, first question is, are any of the images going to load? Lego Fortnite was not what I was going to talk about. I wanted to talk about this isn't really video game related, but this fairly silly radio set, which, depending on the price, may not be too crazy, but they wanted a working radio without actually adding the electronics for a working radio. And so their solution was to make a big portion of the pieces behind this spot a holder for a cell phone. And what's weird about that is I don't think the dials are going to do anything other than move some Lego pieces around. And I don't recognize this radio ever. Like, I don't think I've ever seen a radio like this. But yeah, without a place where you could leave an old cell phone plugged in, which would still be kind of crazy, that seems silly. And your cell phones generally don't have a speaker on the back, so this entire blackness through this part, you're just seeing either the front or the back of a phone. There's, as far as I can tell, no app that plays along with it either. Yeah, so just kind of a very weird set. I would say at least the Zelda set, which is more video game related, has more of a feel of something that kids would want and something that makes some sense. Noticeably, they've pretty much given up on even mentioning the Minecraft micro sets that they used to sell, and Minecraft in general. I think that license just fell away. But yeah, obviously they are much more interested in reaching kids through Fortnite at the moment, since that's the pin tab. And inherently the Fortnite Lego stuff is just trying to sell Fortnite with more kid-friendly skins while still doing pretty much the same thing, running around and shooting people and not really doing much of the construction stuff. I did hear that the most recent update for Fortnite is vehicle combat based, and people who paid for skins are getting cars that have much smaller windows, and thus they are less likely to get shot through the window. Yep. What I'm seeing here in this trailer is not anything really Fortnite, as much as that this just looks like a animated Lego cartoon. It doesn't even look like the WBTT games, Lego games. Yeah, we already talked about Like a Dragon Yakuza getting a live action series, so we don't have to talk about that again. And then apparently Ubisoft Toronto is going to co-develop Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake. The troubled remake is still in the works at Ubisoft, which is called on the Watch Dogs Legion team to help get it out the door. Yeah, clearly there's something going wrong there in its development cycle, because they've been talking. Fans have been wanting a Sands of Time remake for years, decades, and they've been talking about a remake, but they are for years, but they are just now announcing who's actually going to do it, which means somebody else was probably trying to secretly do it. And I can't help but wonder if this isn't just Ubisoft trying to keep people focused on a Sands of Time remake so that they either forget about their previous Prince of Persia game, which was received well enough but didn't really become an outstanding success, or the Rogue Prince of Persia, which was more of a licensed game that just came out. It definitely seems like you wouldn't make this announcement unless you were being fairly rude to the Rogue Prince of Persia, since that has just come out. And the Sands of Time remake, I imagine, is what a lot of people want, but it also kind of needs to be a reboot if they're going to do anything with it. And then there is just a question if they are actually going to do anything with it, or if this isn't just them trying to stall for time between the next Assassin's Creed game, which maybe they don't want people remembering about the announcements of the Assassin's Creed Ninja game. Also, sounds more like it that Ubisoft is just a bad publisher and does not schedule its announcements far enough apart. Of course, we're going to have all these Summer Game Fest types announcements, so maybe we'll see trailers, and maybe that's why they're making these announcements early. But that didn't make the most amount of sense. By the way, Jeff Keighley has said that the Summer Game Fest is not it's not going to really have anything too new, so don't expect any big announcements of surprise AAA games. I think I have hit the point where I am going to mute the Family Gaming Database on Twitter/X, because they have gone off the deep end, I think, in that they have rated, where is it? I swear it was down here. One of the worst games ever here. Without really highlighting it. Here you have Balan Wonderworld, which the creator of Balan Wonderworld found guilty, I believe, of, or confessed to, of insider trading, and the game itself, ignoring the creator, is absolutely garbage, and they're just mentioning it like it's nothing. They're saying it has simpler controls. From what I heard, it was kind of clunky controls and a laid-back challenge. From what I heard, it was actually more difficult because of the clunky controls. And so it definitely feels like there's just no accounting for quality. Yeah, I'm not sure about the gunk either. And so, yeah. In a funny way, I guess Family Gaming Database is just a video game review site that is pretending like it's something more. It is focused on being more family friendly, but it also comes off incredibly just tone deaf, as far as they just don't know what they're talking about when they're recommending certain games, or when they're recommending games be sold or for other consoles. It just, I don't think is super helpful. This is the kind of website I might show to somebody who was overly concerned about their kids playing violent games, but that would be a dishonest action on my part, and I really wouldn't want to do that, because it's just going to cause trouble in the long run when I get caught doing that. So yeah, I'm going to mute Family Gaming Database. They really weren't saying anything helpful anyways. There is still room, I believe, for a better system to rate and review games based on their age appropriateness and family friendliness, but yeah, you first and foremost have to actually care about the games and contend with quality. We shouldn't have to have a situation where you're willing to make your kids play terrible games just because you think they're more family friendly or appropriate. That gets into the Veggie Tales style of mentality, where you're having your kids homeschooled and watching Veggie Tales because you want them to be raised with very conservative Christian values, instead of letting them watch the same shows that their friends would have watched, if they even had any friends. Being homeschooled, they may not even have that. Certainly I could go into more details in those kinds of scenarios, but I'll leave it at that. I think most people know the situations I'm describing, and I imagine a lot of people who do homeschool their kids say, well, that's not me. And maybe it isn't, maybe it is. GameDeveloper.com does put out an interesting thought. Do video game adaptations need games to come along for the ride? Movies and shows based on games keep coming out, but are the games fully able to meet the momentum that Hollywood generates? In particular, I'm not sure that it really does. The problem, particularly with the Fallout TV series, is that they did not have something at the end of every episode that says Fallout 4 is available to play right now. Because had they even said that, or had they say two Fallouts are available to play now, Fallout 4 and Fallout 76, had they even put just like a poster of Fallout 4 and Fallout 76 at the end of episodes, as a baked in ad, that would at least create some direction. Whereas otherwise, I could see a small percentage of people going to play Fallout 1 and being very disappointed in that experience, or some people playing New Vegas like me and not finding any real connection to the TV series there. Having now done Oldwood Blues DLC and the main game, pretty much all of the main game, or at least all of the good guy path of the main game of New Vegas, I can tell you there is No Vault 33, obviously, and very rarely do you interact with anybody who is from a vault. You go into a few vaults, I don't think they're even particularly designed well. There's very little in Fallout 3 or New Vegas around the Brotherhood of Steel. So, on that, you might get a little bit. I guess the question I'd have to double check and watch watch some episodes of the TV series was the leader of this Brotherhood of Steel named Elijah? Because there is a Brotherhood of Steel leader named Elijah, or that's mentioned quite often. So there might be more of a direct connection to the events of New Vegas, and or the events that happened really slightly before New Vegas and what happens with the Brotherhood of Steel. But the TV series is not really focusing on the Brotherhood of Steel much, and more they're focusing specifically on this character. Same is kind of true for her. It's not focusing on the vaults as much as it's focusing on her. You don't see any cowboy ghouls in New Vegas. You see ghouls, but they don't act like this guy does. And this guy, by far, is the real celebrity and hero of the show. The second season could potentially ignore the dog and the two other people, and that would be fine. And in New Vegas, you have robot dogs with human brains attached to them. You don't have just a regular dog. Other Fallout games, you have regular dogs, but there aren't any in New Vegas. So, yeah. It is an interesting thought, though, as far as how many people went and played The Last of Us after The Last of Us TV series. How many people even watched the car fighting one, which I can't even remember because it was on HBO Max. Now, the Mario movie, I would say, is in a different situation and just uniquely its own thing, but I definitely doubt there was very many people who watched the Mario movie who then went and played a Mario game, went and bought a new Mario game to play. I imagine almost everybody who went to see the Mario movie already had all the Mario games they possibly could want. So, and that's an animated, cartoony type show, very different from these more AAA live action, more mature shows, and so you really can't compare the two. Meanwhile, I suppose it's also worth mentioning that GameDeveloper.com said this was going to be Food Week, and they put out one article that I didn't even bother opening about food, but this isn't food related as a editorial opinion piece. I'm surprised they didn't put Fallout actually in the title. So here we have from Video Games Chronicle, the Silent Hill creator, new game Slitterhead is going to get its first gameplay trailer this week. It is at the Summer Games Fest live event on Friday, and Steam announced a Next Fest. So yeah, the Steam Summer Sale, if it's going to happen at all, is going to be very late at this rate. What gets me more about this is we don't have any like pictures to show off. I am now concerned somewhat that Konami is funding and making trailers and making all of Silent Hill 2 as a remake exclusively to just try and screw over Slitterhead in the exact same way we saw a Dead Space 1 remake just to screw over the spiritual successor of Dead Space, Callisto Protocol. And my concern there which I think we've seen it happen once, so it definitely could happen the second time, is that the Silent Hill 2 remake will happen, and then they will never bother to remake or re-release any of the other Silent Hill games, which is going to just have this weird remake situation where I guess you could play Silent Hill 2 remade, but then you'd have to play a much older looking Silent Hill 1 and a much older Silent Hill 3, and then you're going to have to decide which of the other Silent Hill games are even worth playing. And certainly you also run into a double screw job in that Hideo Kojima was supposed to make the reboot Silent Hills game, and that didn't happen with Konami. But the actual creator, being Kiichiro Toyama, also maker of Siren and Gravity Rush, and I think he's probably more loved recently by being the creator of Gravity Rush. You also have a weirdness there saying that he is the creator of Silent Hill when the Silent Hill series seems to be really just a random collection of games made by a random collection of people, all given the same title, in the same way that I think the Resident Evil games are somewhat like that too. That is the positive outcome, certainly, is that Silent Hill 2 remake sells very well, like Resident Evil 2 remake sold very well, which then leads to Resident Evil 3 remakes, which then eventually led to Resident Evil 4 remakes. There is still a question as far as whether they'd ever make a remake of Resident Evil 5 or 6, and a question about whether they would go back with their current engine and once again remake Resident Evil 1. Yeah, that. Of course, the thing also to remember about the Resident Evil 2 remake is that that game was remade and released while they still were releasing and developing sequels to the Resident Evil series, Resident Evil 7 and Resident Evil Village. There is no new Silent Hill game in development, as far as I know, to continue the series. And yeah, then you could get into more nitty-gritty things. I heard people complaining after watching the Silent Hill remake trailer that Pyramid Head looks different, and I've seen some complaints online about a couple of the female characters in the Silent Hill trailer. One of the characters was dressed more sexualized, her underwear kind of showing and midriff showing and cleavage showing, and they've changed the outfit to be much more toned down, which I think thematically for the story of Silent Hill 2 is wrong. If I'm understanding the nature of Silent Hill 2, everything should be dressed in a kind of perverted fashion, or at least a little lewd fashion. And then, yeah, people are just in general not going to like change, even in a remake. Well, no reason to really complain about any of that or even compare any of that until that day one patch gets released, so you know what the actual state of the Silent Hill remake is. And as for Slitherhead, I have no idea what that's going to be. We shall see. Then GameDeveloper.com says that Bespoke Pixel has launched a $25 million investment with a Ubisoft veteran at the helm. The indie studio is based in Barcelona and led by Ubisoft Massive's boss, David Polvelt, which is probably evidence of yet another person jumping ship from Ubisoft. Or and we'll see what happens there, if anything. Bungie has apologized for Destiny 2 connection issues following the final shape release. The game narrowly missed out on hitting its all-time top player count on Steam. So it does seem like everybody who is still interested in Destiny has decided to come back and do the final DLC, the final shape. I think it's the final DLC. And then I think that is going to be it. Although it may not actually be the final DLC, I might just be assuming that because it's called the final shape. And then what are we going to do here? Let's pop this. Out of that way. LibRetro. Notice I did not agree to cookies. LibRetro has released version 1.19.1. The changelog here seems to be that with the Windows Advanced System API, or whatever AS stands for, it only writes when running and fixed a deadlock. So this is a small bug fix, really. Yeah, I think it's Windows Advanced Storage API. That's one thing that Windows 11 in particular, I think, is trying to promote, is just a new advanced programmable interface to speed up and better optimize writing to hard drives and SSDs compared to the default system. Although ideally the default system would just be sped up and optimized and it would work for everything, not people who are writing specific code through an advanced programmable interface to use new features. That is one of the things I discussed while playing Fallout New Vegas 2, is that a lot of what is in Fallout New Vegas is just the same old 3D models and probably the exact same code as Fallout 3. And so you have this legacy code in vendor trash and items and room designs, and it really probably would have been better if they had just eliminated a lot of that legacy code and optimized the game like it was a brand new game trying with brand new code. And in some ways, maybe that's not changing the code as much as it is just getting rid of items. Like, it's kind of ridiculous that there are bent tin cans in the game, because you can't do anything with a bent tin can. But you can make a grenade with a tin can. But you can't turn a bent tin can into a tin can, as far as I can tell. So why not just replace all the bent tin cans with tin cans? Or eliminate all the bent tin cans and just have less items. There is a coffee mug item, and then there is a mug item. You can do something with the coffee mugs. I don't think you can do anything with the mugs. So yeah, it just does that over and over again, where it's like 2 or 3 different versions of things when you really only need one. So YouTube has rolled out posts to more content creators than ever before. They're oddly excluding some of the people in Europe, probably because of legal reasons. And I'm not really sure what these posts are supposed to do. Like, on one hand, it feels like they might be they might be for trying to do something that would replace Twitter, but I don't think they really work that way. I don't think there's a way that you can just see post and follow a feed. That they probably want something like that. But then it also just doesn't feel like there is a hope here that content creators on YouTube would just start posting like you would on Twitter anyways. So I understand that posts have existed and it makes sense every now and then to make a post, but I don't see where it goes the next direction or what they're really rolling out for people. You can have polls, quizzes, GIFs, text images, and video posts, but if your channel is made for kids or folks have supervised accounts or other reasons, they won't see your posts. And I can't see anything I would really do with posts. Not that you're not just trying to trigger with notifications or scheduling things. Maybe have a schedule and update the schedule as a post might make some sense, but I could have done that before. It doesn't feel like they're really adding any new features. And we already talked about their code of conduct. And yeah, let's see if we see, is this a pride flag? Yes, it is. I believe it is. But what happens when you click on it? It's Lionsgate for the movie having a pride flag logo. Can't even read it from that tiny resolution. Anyways, so the Borderlands film doing a thing for Pride put out these pictures. I assume this is for Pride and this isn't just a bunch of cosplayers. Out loud at WEHO Pride. So you have a bunch of males dressed up as psychos from the Borderlands game, which probably isn't representing people particularly well when you're dressing up as a character who's a psycho. For all we know, almost certainly they just hired people to dress up this way for a promotion. I doubt you would have set 6 people choose to all dress up that way. And I guess storyline canonically, at least for the first Borderlands game, there were no female psycho characters. Well, I'm not sure even the most recent Borderlands game has female psychos. So it did seem like there was definitely a exclusive male lifestyle being had between the psychos, but then the psychos also were like prisoners being used for like slave labor on Pandora. So yeah, there's actually particularly very few female characters in the first Borderlands game at all. That you get a few named characters like Mad Moxie, Tiny Tina, but the vast majority, if not every single person you're shooting or even animal you're shooting, I think is male. And that's the kind of benevolent sexism that you have to be careful about. Yep, and you have some fairly diverse dress here compared to this guy, even compared to some of the people more flamboyantly dressed. There's a lot of people who definitely say these Pride festivals just don't feel like they're quite sending the right message. I won't get too deep into that, but yeah, the move I think now in the desire is to not just connect a LGBTQ plus lifestyle to a sexualized lifestyle. If you had a bunch of straight guys with shirts off doing a straight Pride event, it would also not feel appropriate and not promote any kind of message that makes a lot of sense. This is showing off muscles and things. This is the stuff for like maybe a porn site or a nudist beach. It's not feeling, it doesn't feel particularly appropriate as far as trying to promote that LGBTQ plus people can just be normal people with normal lives who want the same rights and treatment as everybody else. And yeah, I don't think the Borderlands movie here is helping anything by hiring people. Then we have what look like some drag queens, which, yeah, I would say the weirdest thing is that RuPaul as a drag queen has probably done the best representation that I've seen by just being a game show host on the Game Show Network for the show Lingo. Because there you have RuPaul not in drag, because he's not doing a drag show at the time, and just being a host and just being himself and just being somebody that you could potentially be entertained by and relate to. This is very much not relatable. Like, nobody in their private sex lives is gonna dress up as a psycho. So yeah, and I'd say drag racing, like drag racing in general, is more of a cabaret show job than it is something you do 24/7. Well, I guess there probably are some people like that. I'm gonna get in trouble saying something here, I'm sure. And then I would almost assume that this is somebody from Lionsgate that was paid to hire these people and do this cross promotion. That would be my guess. Or this is somebody from, if not Lionsgate, then Gearbox. Yeah. Not sure what WEHO stands for. Meanwhile, I suppose it's also worth pointing out that Gearbox is in North Dallas. And this is probably not a North Dallas, Texas Pride show. They probably don't have anything or have anything to do with that. I've never seen Gearbox promote anything like that. Nor in the games do you really have too many gay characters. It's like one gay character, and it was played off very much as a joke. You can see from the poster, here's a psycho who is definitely being covered up a little bit more and just not totally shirtless. I imagine most of these actors and actresses are left-leaning, although I'm not a whole 100% sure about Kevin Hart there. We really have not gotten any new promotions of the movie, so either the movie is coming out fairly quickly, which it should be a summer release. Oh yeah, it's coming out on IGN Live on June 7th to June 9th. When is the movie actually coming out, though? Yeah, August 9th in theaters. Yeah, I'm definitely ready to be done with the movie and be done with promotion of the movie. But yeah, one of these things is not like the other as far as Pride Month. Although, in fairness, since I am assuming that this is just a bunch of like male strippers who may or may not be LGBTQIA plus, since I'm assuming they were actually hired by either Lionsgate or Gearbox, this might be the closest thing we've seen to a video game company actually putting their money where their mouth is instead of just playing lip service during Pride months. So yeah, I personally just feel like the whole Pride festivals need to refocus how they're gonna show off Pride. Like I'd like to see a lot more families with couples and families nicely dressed walking down the street, showing off that they can just look like a normal family too, and that the whole thing just be way less sexualized. Because that kind of activity just really should be behind doors in like a swingers meetup, swingers club or something. And it's not just the LGBT-ness of it. If a straight couple were like making out or doing bedroom fantasy role playing, if some straight couple had the wife calling the husband daddy, like, or the husband's softly choking her in public, like that's not appropriate stuff either. Like any kind of adult activity needs to be in a place where you're consenting to go into that, like a swingers club or a BDSM club. You're consenting to enter it. It shouldn't just be on the street where people have to walk and people are going to see it, kids in particular. I guess while I am very much anti-censorship, I do think that it is on the shoulders of all people to be responsible and make the outside world where kids can look outside a window or walk down the street. All of that should be very family friendly. Same true for advertisements there. And yes, I am making an assumption here on these Pride presentations and these kinds of presentations in general that topless men are sexualized, which in that context I think most people would agree it's true. I would like to get to a future where the human body is not so assumed to be sexual and men could just walk around the street. Men and women could walk down the street topless if they wanted to, but that's not the Western society at all. And even in Japan, for example, where men do publicly bathe with other men and are topless and naked with other men all the time, you never see Japanese people topless walking down the street. They're usually overclothed in suits. Anyways, I feel like I've gone on too much of a rant here, and probably somebody's going to get upset with something I've said. Here, let's move on to all the new games on Steam. So, here we have a visual novel rated very positively. It's out of early access. It's not in early access, so we'll say yes to that. And let's see if we can get it off the pull list. I probably should have gotten it off the pull list. I think that the move here is you've got to take the games off the pull list, then put them on the wish list. Yeah. And inherently my wish list is just going to be full of a lot of visual novels that I'd never really play. I wish games in general had just text-to-speech engines, particularly now with large language modules and things that are being described as AI. There's a lot of cleavage in this game. Yeah, with things like AI, text-to-speech can sound pretty good, and I could see making a new Fallout game in particular that would just have a Pip-Boy 4000 that that has text-to-speech built in, and anytime you picked up any kind of book or read anything on a computer terminal, you could just have it play and speak to you in a fairly good sounding, maybe slightly robotic voice. It's definitely a case in New Vegas that they wasted a lot of money hiring famous Hollywood actors, face actors, to voice a lot of characters in New Vegas, like Morgan Freeman. So Elder Scrolls Online Gold Road must be new. And yeah, the question certainly to ask here is, I'll never play the Elder Scrolls Online, but it is almost certainly the direction that we will see the next Skyrim Elder Scrolls game going. Anything that gets added here almost certainly has to be in the next Elder Scrolls single player experience. Notably, this expansion is not being received particularly well. Is there a reason for that? Let's see. ZeniMax is steadily turning into Ubisoft, create a gameplay model, copy it once a year, and slightly change it for the rest of the game's lifecycle. Other than the new trial, there's not a single thing in this expansion that shows the tiniest sign of creativity. Introduce a new map, add slightly changed daemons from the base game, have exactly same world boss to dive. Excuse me there. I'm getting a tickle in my throat. Here we have one in Spanish. Yeah, it'd be nice if Steam translated reviews and you could see reviews in other languages instead of just filtering reviews based on the language, which is not even accurate. Yeah, Open Translate, I believe, is an open source software you could do with that. Undersea 8. Is this a real game or is this just an asset flip? We'll give it a chance. So the move here, yeah, now more and more we're gonna see games with numbers in them, like to create confusion from Exit 8. And Game Grumps did come back in the later episode and admit that they realized that Platform 9 or Exit 9 was not made by the people who made Exit 8, and it was way worse. And the commentator guy, I think his name's Danny, basically admitted that he just didn't want to say anything negative while they were making content, which definitely tells you that there isn't really a focus on giving real criticism from the Game Grumps, which you should have been able to figure out anyways just by watching one of their episodes, that they barely care about what's happening on the screen when they're playing games, and they are just about promoting themselves and making comedic episodes. But yeah, it definitely seems like we are going to see a lot of Exit 8 stuff. Is this clap clap some new meme thing? Probably. I don't think this is quite enough of a puzzle to say yes to. I guess the other thing I could say I've been spending time on still is trying to catch up on Memento Mori, and this is just a text-based game, I think. I'm gonna say no. Even though the visuals look good, I'm pretty sure this is 100% just a kinetic visual novel that doesn't have any branching choices. Yeah, still trying to catch up on Memento Mori. I uninstalled all the Publishers Clearinghouse apps I had installed a couple days before. They weren't working because they were trying to load ads and my ad blocker was blocking them. Which, yeah, the experience there would have probably been awful with allowing ads on it. I'm still playing with the New York Times Wordle app, but I'm probably going to uninstall that fairly quickly too. And I'm still watching Cracking the Cryptic on YouTube, but more and more I am just getting bored faster watching those videos and skipping to the end. It is very much the case when watching these super difficult Sudoku variants on Cracking the Cryptic that if I can't find that first step, then I will spend 10, maybe 20 minutes on it and then just give up, because there's just no recovering from that. There's no hint system or anything built into the website that they share the puzzles on. And usually if I can't figure it out, it is just a really complicated. This is probably nothing, but I'll give it a chance. It usually is a pretty complicated game. Right. So what is this? This is early access, so I'll leave it on the fall list. But it's already on the fall list, so I'm not going to make another YouTube short on it. Yeah, I've kind of forgotten what rules I was trying to make here. I guess I'm still getting... Is this a real game or is this just an excuse to have a French-made outfit? It looks like it might be a real game. Probably isn't, but I'll give it a chance. Yeah, I guess I'm still getting subscribers, but not at any specific rate that makes me think I would hit 1,000 anytime soon. And even if I did hit 1,000, I'm not anywhere close to getting enough watch time. More recently, it definitely feels like I'm not getting a lot of watches of the pre-recorded footage or views, and that would be the footage, if anything, that I would imagine would have the longer watch time. Make sushi, make friends. I'll put that on the wish list. It is very much a case too where I'll make another YouTube short around this since it's mostly positive and is a little bit of a different experience. Throwback reference to a B horror movie. I don't even know if it technically would be a B movie. Yeah. It is incredibly frustrating as a content creator. It's worth pointing out when you're getting 0 views. It's one thing to get 50 views and then realize, well, at least somebody watched it, but by the time you even get 50 views on a YouTube channel as a content creator, you're going to be so happy for those 50 views, unless you're the 1 in a billion type of content creator where your first video just goes viral. Does this support English? Only English. Yeah. The overwhelming number of 0 views you're going to get, it's just going to be terrible. And I guess I am particularly in a unique situation in that I'm putting out quite a lot of videos per day, so I'm getting quite a lot of rejections. I am effectively speed dating viewers on YouTube, just trying my best to ignore the millions of rejections of people not watching videos when being suggested videos, and just focus on the few that do like. There is also a yeah, I think this one's probably a little bit too mature to make a YouTube short on it, but we'll put this on the follow list and see how people like it. Again, tagged with nudity and SFW. I'm not sure if it really has any of that content. No, it really doesn't. Steam really needs to fix their tag system. Just get rid of these tags. In general, get rid of them or force every game that uses them into the adult section. One of those two options are really the only thing you can do. Make it a big deal. Call it the Great Migration. Send out a big notice that over 10,000 games on Steam are going to be put behind the adult section. And convince people to furniture sibling game. We'll give that a chance. Convince as many people, as many adults, to actually agree to look at the adult section. Asymmetric VR versus PC. Interesting thought. Not an interesting game, though. Oh yeah, I was gonna talk about a lot of people lately have come public about being partially demonetized on YouTube due to what I suspect might be a bug, or may just be a case of YouTube recognizing and admitting that a lot of views are invalid traffic by their own standards. How they define something as invalid seems to be fairly nebulous, as everything that YouTube does seems fairly nebulous. And honestly, I'm not sure that this isn't just him straight up lying to pay less money out. It's, I guess, in a way, a small adpocalypse that is more targeted to specific channels. The types of things that I think most content creators would agree are invalid traffic and should just be automatically recognized and removed from being considered as paying out views would be if the content creator, for one reason or other, is watching their own video, which there is a lot of legitimate reasons why you would watch your own video instead of just the illegitimate reason of trying to get the number of views up, or paying people to watch your videos to get you views. That obviously should be considered invalid traffic and makes it only more difficult for legitimate content creators to get a legitimate audience. Unfortunately, I wonder if not most, or at least a significant amount of people who have been successful on YouTube did become successful by cheating a little bit here and there for views. I think the reason why so many people potentially are cheating for views on YouTube is because the requirements are way too high for views overall, just to be monetized in the first place. But then the third reason that things get listed as invalid traffic, it seems, is that you'll have somebody mention a link or post a link to your video on some website, some forum, and then depending on the domain, the www.com domain, YouTube may or may not decide that that entire domain is an unacceptable domain that only ever produces invalid traffic, which then creates this weird situation where you kind of don't want people to share links directly to your videos on forums, and instead you want them to tell people to go to YouTube and type in the title, which is a lot more work and less people are likely to do that. And at a certain level, if YouTube is going to consider anything that is linked to be invalid traffic, then they should just not allow links or expire the links. I definitely know one of my videos did get straight up used as a video in an article about, I think, Hearthstone it was, and that got me a lot of views, which I wouldn't be surprised if they consider that invalid traffic. And yeah, that's not particularly great that somebody is just freebooting your video to write some kind of article very quickly. And with the rise of AI, you are going to see a lot more of that, where you're going to have AI generating more and more articles for listicle type sites, filling up the Google search with pointless results that aren't helpful or informative. And yeah, I guess the question, in my case, it wasn't technically freebooting because they didn't just download the video and upload it themselves. They did properly link back to the video. So the linking's not the problem as much as maybe the embedding is, if they're going to call that invalid traffic. Again, I just don't know if it's fair to just so broadly label everything as invalid just because you don't like a domain or a forum. Like, at a certain level, you could say Reddit is all, any traffic from Reddit would be considered invalid traffic, because almost certainly there's something that they wouldn't like about links on Reddit. Pool cleaning simulator is already mixed, so I'm gonna not bother with that one. A lot of games today. Of course, me talking about the invalid traffic partial demonetization problem right now is pointless. It's going to be a long time, if ever, before I would ever actually be monetized in the first place. And so at that point, we probably will be on to the next adpocalypse. So I think there may have been a fairly large spike here in the 24-hour peak, like a really big change. Counter-Strike 2 is still number one, but PUBG Battlegrounds may have jumped up. Destiny 2 may have jumped up quite a bit. We're actually seeing quite a few very large numbers of players. I did also hear that the bot problem still seems to be really high in Team Fortress 2, which I'm not sure where. Here it is. Yeah, the fans are saying that the bots are really, really bad in Team Fortress 2, that you're getting auto-kicked from games, and then in the public chat, the bots are advertising an anti-bot protection racket, where you would have to pay to not be automatically kicked from the game. Which that's crazy, and that seems like that would be something really easy to find and stop. I can't help but wonder, even at 87,000 players in the 24-hour peak, how many of those are bots. Particularly when you see these numbers at Counter-Strike 2, I can't help but wonder if there isn't somewhere around 700, 800,000 bots playing that game. As far as like new games, this Banana Clicker is still around, hasn't disappeared. Crab game is not the game, not another Crab's game. Another Crab game. Which that game seems to be better than I thought it was. From seeing some people cover it a little bit more. I don't even think it's in the top 50 though. Yeah. So it does look like there may have been some change, and when I look at my chart here, Destiny 2 has skyrocketed up. In fact, it skyrocketed up so much I thought there might have been a glitch here. But no, I do think that the final piece probably was released here on the 31st, and then was slow to start because of server issues here on the 3rd, and now has skyrocketed up the chart very, very high, surpassing Apex Legends, which is falling downward somewhat. Everything else is trending downward still, but not by a large amount. And yeah, this is 50,000 to 350,000 concurrent players in the last 24 hours. Notice here that there's quite a few games that are down here just at the bottom because the number is bumped up higher. So the chart is kind of changing based on what is the highest right now. It brings in some more relevant information, I guess, is where this chart may not be changing as much. Yeah, all this here I think may disappear if Destiny 2 dropped below 50,000 for one day. And then Stardew Valley is just barely above this. On a certain level, I probably should just raise the bare minimum up to 75,000. Then that would clean up the chart even more. But no, I think this is fairly readable. There's still some issues as far as just like you have Rust in a light yellow and then Baldur's Gate 3 in a darker yellow. I'm not sure if these colors stay consistent either. But yeah, the Steam front page is advertising Destiny 2 The Final Shape, and directly below that we're getting advertisements for Helldivers 2 and Baldur's Gate 3 and Ghost of Tsushima and The Division 2. Yeah. So they're not specifically excluding any advertisements to promote Helldivers 2. And yeah, I don't think we'll see anything else special today. These recently updated things feel like those might be more helpful information if I was really gaming on a tighter budget, where I could seek out games that have been updated and play them more. Nightmare Cart is new and trending. And here we have a game that's been excluded for what reason? Because it's some kind of tower defense game that I blocked. Excluded by ignored developer publisher franchise. Interesting, it's excluded and still it's showing up, so it's not excluded that much. Destiny 2 has jumped to the top of the top sellers list here. Yeah, I'll actually be very surprised if Killer Clowns from Outer Space actually succeeds for a long running amount of time. But yep, no sale, no even mention of the Steam Next Fest so far. Alright, so let's do the headlines and then we'll be done for today. And then, yeah, I think I might be in a good position where I'll probably have to play some of New Vegas off screen, but then maybe I can manage to make one episode. I'm getting worse and worse about going to bed at a reasonable time. I never was good at that, but I still am trying to go to bed at like 10 in the evening. So yeah, headlines. It looks like PlayStation's new shooter Concord could be priced at $40. I heard a couple of people talk about the trailer of Concord. DF Retro, I believe, specifically said they don't like animated cutscenes in trailers when you're announcing a game, because inherently, even if you show gameplay after the animated cutscene, you've just raised the expectations above what you can actually deliver on. Otherwise, I just saw several people say they didn't like the visuals of these characters, or as far as the character designs, and that the game itself is just an Overwatch clone, so I imagine you needed the characters to be more visually interesting than what Concord looks like it is. Of course, what they could do with a game like this, and they've even set themselves nicely to do this, is they could just continuously add more characters and take the feedback, and in the end, if there was 8 characters and 3 of them in the center looked somewhat ugly, and then the rest of them were way more intriguing visually, you could fix that pretty well. You could fairly quickly put in skins or different outfits for these characters, and yeah, I think the problem here is that the green skin is probably a little off-putting on this character, and the haircut is probably a little weird. Maybe the personality and storyline's going to be somewhat of an issue too. The goatee. I don't know if anybody's going to have too much of a complaint about the human-looking female. She looks good enough. And then I would say the red here, and then the blue and the goatee. And it's the beards, it's the hairstyles, it's the color palettes. Those are the things that they just need a different pass on. And they perhaps look a little too generic. Like, I know this guy is probably a heavy, this girl is probably a mage, and this guy's probably a sharpshooter. As far as character classes, if I was to generally guess. $40 may mean nothing as far as the price too, because it may just be full of microtransactions. I saw something on Reddit where the Multiversus single player charges you $10 in DLC to refill your lives, or some amount of money to refill your lives, which is completely unacceptable. And I can't imagine that they thought they'd get away with that. Silent Hill's creators Slitherhead is going to get its first gameplay trailer this week. Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble DLC includes Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy. Sega game having crossover Sega Sonic characters is unsurprising. What would be more surprising is just if Super Monkey Ball as a game would ever work. If Steam and Valve really wanted to do something crazy, they would make the gyro controls on the Steam Deck work with Super Monkey Ball type game and make it kind of an exclusive to the Steam Deck. Then you would have a lot of Sonic fanboys wanting to buy a Steam Deck a lot more, and the gyro thought on the Steam Deck, if it's programmed well, could be an interesting Wiimote type gimmick for a few games. Which noticeably, there never really was an official way to get a Wiimote to work with a computer, or a Joy-Con to work with a computer. Octopath Traveler has been rated for PlayStation consoles, so yeah, it's gonna be released kind of years later. Octopath Traveler 2, I believe, is already out. Yeah, it's released in February of last year, and so this is going back to release this one, which, if it's coming to PlayStation, doesn't look like it would be too hard to port. Maybe Octopath Traveler 1. Oh, nope, it already is on PC. Yeah, Octopath Traveler 1, it was on PC. Octopath Traveler 2 is on PC. It's just Octopath Traveler 1 was not on PlayStation. The Last of Us Part 2 Remastered on PC has been ready for at least 7 months, it's being claimed. Reliable Insider says developer on the PC port is well and truly complete. Well, it usually is not that's not the case. And if you're going to make that claim, then it better be absolutely perfect on release with no bug fix needed or no patches. But yeah, it does seem like an odd timing delay issue, and I don't see a real reason why you would want to do that. Although inherently it kind of makes sense to, like, in the last 7 months, would you have had a good point to release the PC port of this if you're Sony and you're trying to sell PlayStation 5s or PlayStation 5 Pros? No. 7 months ago would have been too late for a good Christmas season, because you would have missed Black Friday, and it would have also been when there was a shortage of PS5s. So yeah, if they're thinking that this is going to, but it's PC port, so the shortage of PS5s wouldn't matter, unless they're just trying not to get extra sales to highlight that you don't need to buy a PS5. Seems very weird, but it also kind of makes sense. What would be really crazy is that if this is true, if they don't release it for another 7 months. But yeah, right now it's still worth pointing out that the PlayStation PC ports are in a very bad position because of just the requirement for PlayStation Network being added to most of the PlayStation games. second party PlayStation games, first party PlayStation games. Bungie apologizes for Destiny 2 connection issues following the final shape release. We already talked about this. Remedy looks set to reveal an Alan Wake 2 Nightmare Springs DLC at Summer Games Fest. So we're getting a lot of headlines here that are rumors for teasers for trailer announcements. It's just like, how far back from the actual release of a game do you want to be informed about these things? Jingle Jam 2024 charity gaming event announces its 8 charity partners. Never heard of Jingle Jam, but apparently £2.7 million were raised last year, and overall in its lifetime it's raised £25 million. So these are partners that are donating money, UK charities donating money to a UK based event that's being reported on by Video Games Chronicle because it is a UK based website or UK focused website. Hogwarts Legacy video shows off the game's free summer update. Which, okay. There's going to be a free summer update. Red Cross partners with Tetris to encourage US blood donations. Hitman 3 VR Reloaded launches this summer as a MetaQuest 3 exclusive. Which I guess this would be the first thing we've heard from the Hitman franchise and IO Interactive. They are supposed to be developing an officially licensed James Bond game. Hopefully they're not struggling with that. Inherently, the rights holders of the James Bond copyright might be a little difficult to deal with. We haven't seen a James Bond movie made in a few years. EA Sports Football Club 24's free Euro 24 update launches this week. Metaphor ReFantasio showcase has been announced for Friday. This is more of a Japanese anime game. I'm surprised Video Games Chronicle even mentioned it. Dead by Daylight Studio Behavior is laying off up to 95 employees. The cuts could impact approximately 7% of its staff, with most being based in Montreal. I find it surprising that they're laying off anybody, since it seems like Dead by Daylight is making a lot of success and a lot of profit, I would assume. But yeah, it definitely seems like every single video game company has decided that they were bloated and needed to lay off employees. And yeah, the reason they're doing this is because it's a lot of follow the leader, and because inherently it is the plan, whether that plan was handed to them by consulting agencies or they thought it up themselves. It is the plan of most video game companies to lay off employees so that they can't get comfortable enough to vote to unionize and or ask for raises. Lay off 95 employees today, hire 95 new employees next year at minimum wage or a lower wage, and just keep repeating that cycle over and over again. Chew them up and spit them out. Hiring. Octopath Traveler 2 is reportedly coming to the Xbox, Windows PC, and Game Pass this month. Which, by that, I assume they mean that it's coming to Xbox on Windows PC, and not that it is coming to Windows PC for the first time. Hogwarts Legacy returns to the top of the UK physical charts as Paper Mario slips to second. Right, and that's going to bring us to the Gamatsu headlines. Bloodstained Ritual of the Night DLC Classic 2 Dominique's Revenge launches June 11th. I thought Bloodstained was done adding content, but apparently not. Do I have Bloodstained? Did I ever get around to buying it? Nope, it is still on the wish list. And I think I may have the other Bloodstained game. That is the 2D game. Yep. Bought the cheap one. Or I got the cheap one. Nope. That's not what this is. This is Child of Light bundle. See if this one includes the 2D game. Where's the other Bloodstained game? Well, yep. That DLC is not available to be seen yet, so I won't make a YouTube short on this. Bloodstained, very positively received. I probably have some older Castlevania games that might be worth checking out, but I wouldn't even begin to check them out until I had Bloodstained Ritual of the Night, so that I could skip through them and just say, well, these games are too old, let me play the newer one. I want to have at least that option. It's a very old school pixely animation. Super Monkey Ball Banana Rumble DLC Sega Pass, Sonic, Tails, Knuckles, and Amy trailer and screenshots are available at Gamatsu. RPG Maker WITH for Switch launches October 11th in the West. I assume it's RPG Maker with is how you pronounce it. My hope is that RPG Maker will just fall into obscurity in favor of something like the Godot engine. And the good news is I'm really not seeing a lot of RPG Maker asset flip games being released on Steam anymore. So one problem seems to finally have fixed itself, or maybe Valve is just rejecting a lot of RPG Maker games. But yeah, there's still plenty of other garbage games coming out on Steam. Famitsu's review scores for issue 1852 are available on Gamatsu. Let's see what we've got. Construction Simulator 4 for the Switch is 29 out of 40, particularly low. MotoGP 24 is 32 out of 40. And then Shin Megami Tensei 5 Vengeance is getting 36 out of 40. All 9s out of 40. A single route takes 80 hours to clear. I wonder how many routes overall there are. Seems like a very long running game, but yeah, the Famitsu audience, the Japanese audience, seems to like it. Wild Bastards launches September 12th. I suppose it's also important to point out that Vengeance of Shin Megami Tensei is just a better version of the original Shin Megami Tensei 5. And so they're selling the game a second time. Cozy puppy co-op horror game Haunted Paws has been announced for PC, which I don't know how you can say horror game and cozy game in the same breath, but I'll be darned if it doesn't look like they are actually trying to do it. Definitely feels like you're going to have some conflicting theming going on there as to whether You're trying to have the player feel afraid or feel cozy. Unless we've hit a point now where horror games have just superseded the idea that they even need to be in any way scary or even trying to be scary. Which certainly that's happened with some horror movies too. That, yeah, the Leprechaun movies particularly, or the Haunted Bong series of movies are supposed to be horror themed, or at least they originally were, but fell into just being comedy. Scary movie series, yeah, supposed to be a parody, but maybe it intended in the first movie to be scary, maybe, probably not. Magical tavern management game Baltic Folk has been announced for PC. This is a weird combination of people. Seems more memorable with character designs. But the actual game is just going to be a tavern management game. Probably don't even need to put that one on the fall list, but I guess that's not how I'm using the fall list anymore. I guess I'm putting everything on the fall list now. Yacht Club Games Presents is set for June 14th, featuring new announcements and dazzling surprises. This is the Shovel Knight developer, so should expect that they might say something interesting. A P versus E third-person action RPG called Legacy, Steel, and Sorcery has been announced for PC. So it would be player versus event. I'd assume that means you can both have player versus player and events. Yep. There's no tag for P versus E. This could be something. This feels reminiscent to me of one of the Overlord games or Fable games. I'm not sure it really is going to play that way though. And if it is just all online player versus player, that probably won't be a game I'd really want to play. Adventure game AI Confidential has been announced for PC. Does seem like we've got a list here of new PC games, none of which are showing up on my search otherwise. Flock launches July 16th. Not quite sure what you do in this game, but I'll give it a chance. Octopath Traveler has been rated for the PS4 and 5 in Taiwan, alongside Octopath Traveler 2 for the Xbox Series. Devolver Digital and Heart Machine are going to announce a new game on June 7th. Mouse Busters has added a Switch version. This is the Ghostbusters, but if you're mice concept. A steampunk Metroidvania and 2D shooter hybrid called Clockwork Ambrosia for PC launches in the spring of 2025. Well, this looks like this could be something. I still haven't fixed the JavaScript here to make this speed through the screenshots. I forget what I even was going to do. I've already got it changing the speed so it speeds through screenshots faster. What was I going to do? And the default code is whenever you put the mouse up above it. Oh, I was going to reduce the delay because you put the mouse on here and then it's 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 3 seconds to go back to scrolling. And then when you click here, I feel like you want it to start scrolling faster than that. Oh, just trying to move as fast as possible, going through all of these pages. So yeah, now I remember what I was going to do. I'll probably forget it again before I get around to actually trying to program it. A hand-animated RPG called Cricket and Jaws Really Peculiar Game launches August 15th for all consoles and PC. This is a Redmond-based developer, Studio Kumio. Is Cricket the name of a person? I think it might be, because it doesn't seem like they are playing cricket. If anything, it looks like they're playing volleyball or something. Right? SteamWorld Heist 2 extended gameplay trailer is available at Gamatsu. Getting all these new announcements for new games and not seeing any of them show up as the new release games on the Steam page makes me a little concerned that there might be who knows how many more games that have made new Steam pages or have made announcements that they're being released and I'm just missing them. But yeah, it kind of doesn't matter. We're seeing more than enough games every live stream anyways. It's not like we're missing AAA games or things that people are getting hyped about and talking about. Wiko, the Mask Gatherer, launches July 26. Wonder if this is inspired in part by something like Majora's Mask. I would think it's gotta be somewhat inspired by that. When you look at the visuals of this game, and while it looks more like Wind Waker than Majora's Mask, it just also doesn't really compare in any way. Nintendo just has that visual polish that is very difficult to copy or even come to that same level of quality. PAX Dei launches in early access on June 18th. PAX Dei, a social sandbox MMO. It's launching its own launcher. Yeah, I'm not sure that this isn't just a very pretty game. It definitely reminds me somewhat of that last Conan game, Conan the Barbarian game, which nothing came about from that. Like, we haven't heard of a new Conan the Barbarian game, and I'm not sure that the one I'm thinking of ever actually released out of early access or felt like a finished product. Magical Delicacy adds a Switch version and launches July 16th. Let's see if this has got a Steam link. Nope, don't have a Steam link for it. Yep. Well, this may be one that I just missed completely, but I guess I have to risk that since there's no Steam link. Like a Dragon Yakuza, Japanese live-action drama series premieres October 25th on Amazon Prime Video. That's kind of early. It says Japanese live-action, so I assume that means it is going to be spoken language of Japanese. Yeah. These definitely look like Japanese actors. So it'd be very weird if they spoke English first. Probably will be released dubbed at some point. I wouldn't be surprised if it's dubbed into English on day one. Atlas exclusive Metaphor Read Fantasio livestream is set for June 7th. Rusty Rabbit launches on September 24th. And see, when I see a headline like this, I assume that means the game has already been announced, but I definitely don't remember this game at all. Avalanche Studio closes its New York and Montreal locations, laying off 9% of its staff. Dig or Die is coming to PS4 and 5 and Xbox One and Series on June 5th. The PlayStation VR 2 adapter for PC launches August 7th. Metal Slug Tactics launches this fall for all consoles and PC. Not sure if the Metal Slug series is a series that really deserves spin-off games, and I'm not sure it's even popular as far as the main games, but whatever, we'll give it a chance. The Riven remake launches June 25th, available for PC and Quest. Let's make sure that's on the fall list. And I will make a special exception here and make another YouTube short for Riven remakes, since I am a fan of Riven. Closer the Distance launches in 2024 for PS5, Xbox Series, and PC. Which we won't make another YouTube short on that. And that's going to bring us to the GameDeveloper.com headlines, which we probably talked about most of them, so let's just go through them very quickly. A Like a Dragon TV series is fighting its way to Prime Video in October. Behavior Interactive cuts 95 jobs in a strategic corporate change. CI Games hires Tencent and PlayStation Vet to spearhead development. Expectations for us are high. New PlayStation CEO outlines their vision of the future. Sony Interactive Entertainment has a new corporate structure and 2 CEOs, but how will that impact its developers? Yeah, if I really cared, I'd probably read this whole article, but actions speak louder than words, so it'll just be a while till we see how the new Sony Interactive Entertainment is run, and how Sony overall lets PlayStation division of Sony Interactive Entertainment run. Content Warning has sold 2.2 million copies and netted 8.8 million players in 2 months. That unfortunately is going to be a game that is going to constantly have a very high number as far as the number of player bases compared to the number of sales, because they released the game originally as free, but now they're charging money, and I don't think enthusiasm for the game was maintained after they started charging money. They started charging money like a week later. Ubisoft Toronto will co-develop the Prince of Persia Sands of Time remake. Alright, and that's the end of the show. So, as always, I ask you to like, share, subscribe, comment, and keep on watching. Thanks.